Hello and welcome to the Easter week edition of Political Smackdown. We're glad to have you with us this week. Well, earlier in the week, the county had a ribbon cutting at the new Board of Elections now on West Marion Street. The board's been recently housed on Patton Drive, if you remember. In remarks to the commission, Commission Chair Kevin Gordon said the project represents the adaptive reuse of former public safety asset to a building supporting the cornerstone of our republic, the right to vote. The county purchased the former rescue building and 3 houses on Bowman Street for a total land acquisition cost of just under $1.8 million and completely renovated the building at a cost of just over $1.8 for a total combined cost of $3.6 million. Proper space for the Board of Elections has been needed for quite a few years. This building is 8,000 square feet and has ample storage, parking, all completed within budget, and it carries no debt to the county. Betsy, your husband Steve served as chair of the Board of Elections, so you probably heard a lot of fussing about the old building, getting things in and out. What are your thoughts on the new Board of Elections?
I just think it's wonderful. And as I was coming over here this morning, I called Deborah Blanton, who was the longtime director, and I asked her, well, when you took over in the 80s, where was the Board of Elections? And she said it was on the 2nd floor of the Sweppy Law Firm. And then it moved from there to a small building that housed radio stuff behind the courthouse before they moved to the little block building that's down there beside Tasty Tea Drive-In. And then they moved to the old Red Cross building before they moved to the Red Cross building, at that time the new one on Patton Drive, and that's where it was for a number of years. And so the space that they've got, the parking, it's going to be great. So I just think that and the fact that they were able to move in complete under the budget and have no debt says a lot about repurposing buildings. And I'm just glad that the Board of Elections, that now that we have the county's growing so in population, that it needed to be done. So I'm very happy about it. And I'm just sorry that I was not able to go to the ribbon cutting. But I know that there was a big crowd there.
It was a big crowd. Andy, I guess we're all showing our age on this one a little bit because we all remember all the way back to where you mentioned in the Sweppy Law Office upstairs. But the Board of Elections has always been almost like a redheaded stepchild, it seems, at least with location. They've just been thrown wherever space was available. Now they've got a place that's created for them.
Well, and I think it's high time for that. I mean, when I was old enough to register to vote, I went to where Sweppy's at now. I mean, that was nowhere, not handicap accessible in any way. Awful steps going up, and then when they moved over next to Tasty Tea, that was an improvement.
But not much.
Not much, but at least it was where it was on the main floor where people could access it easier. And let's face it was always nice when I was kind of holding court out there at Tasty Tea, watching who come in and out the file. I mean, at least you got a good cheeseburger out of it. So.
Right.
But I've not been to their new building, but it just looks beautiful. From the pictures that we've had here, it's high time. I mean, it really is.
Well, they did an excellent job with it, Mike. I guess the storage you don't really notice unless you're inside in the back, but you can see the ample parking, the handicap parking, and now with early voting, there's a great location in Shelby for that now.
Well, they've got plenty of room. It seemed to work well at early voting. I was out there 4 or 5 times during that too long of early voting period. But there's plenty of ease to get traffic in and out, plenty of place for people to park. And I haven't been inside the building. I meant to go, but had an appointment at that time. But the way they managed to close Bowman Street, or to get the city to close Bowman Street, was the apartment complex on the east side had no access onto Bowman. And so they had to buy 3 lots that you mentioned, one of which they don't particularly need now to have for the future, but to get it closed, they had to buy the 3 lots right behind it, and then the city agreed to close it. Because they essentially own the whole street on both sides, except for that, I believe it's 16-unit apartment complex that has no access into Bowman Street. So that's how they were able to get it accomplished, and they were fortunate that the people were willing to sell. They didn't have to do condemnation and all that kind of stuff. But at any rate, I hope it works well for many years, and I feel sure that it will. It's a little bit far from uptown, where it's always been, right uptown, but it's less than a mile from uptown Shelby, so it's still in the heart of the county, and it's easy to tell somebody how to find it. Just tell them to go a few doors up from the famous Westmoreland house.
Probably better tell them it's across from the library.
I understand.
But here's the other thing too, and this is more inside baseball stuff. When you have a recount, that basement in the last place was so crowded.
Yes.
It was awful. And when you get a bunch of people in there, they're running the ballots through. You've got observers there, which I've done that a couple times. It just takes some space. And this way you're not on top of one another. There's ample room now to do all that. It's a great thing. It's been a long time coming.
And Betsy, you'll remember Canvas one year, Johnny Hutchins and Robin Hendrick.
Robin Hendrick, yes.
And you
Yes,
and I were
do.
there for the canvas, both
Yes,
on
we
the phone
were.
with attorneys, but you got to just walk across the street to get to your attorney.
That's right.
That was the advantage there, but the basement certainly wasn't the most comfortable place to be for
No,
that.
it's a small, constricted area.
Well, folks, be aware that Board of Elections has moved, so as all you Democrats continue to change your registration, just ride down West Marion Street to do so. We'll be glad to have you. Well, more big news this week. The blast off of the Artemis II rocket. As we record, they're set to head for a lap around the moon for the first time in over 50 years. Interestingly, the crew is composed of the first woman, the first African American, and the first non-U.S. citizen to travel to the moon. Also of local interest, Christina Koch has spent 350 days in space, was raised in Jacksonville, North Carolina, and she went to the North Carolina School of Science and Math and earned her degree from NC State University. The director of the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Vanessa Weiss, is from Conway, South Carolina, and a graduate of Clemson. And Charlie Blackwell Thompson was the launch director. She's from Gaffney and also a graduate of Clemson. So now, folks, you know why the rocket was painted orange. I think there's a little tiger paw. If you look to the left of it, you can see that. So what are your thoughts of America being back in deep space, Mike?
Well, I guess it is just part of the, as one person described it, the golden age of innovation and exploration. It's in preparation, as I understand it, for an eventual manned trip to Mars. This is 250,000 miles plus whatever, how many million it is to Mars. If any of y'all know, I don't remember.
A whole lot more than that.
A lot
A
more,
whole lot
lots
than going to the
It'd be a
moon.
long trip, but they say it's for scientific discovery to better explore the moon. There are economic benefits long term, and it's just to build on the foundation so they can send somebody to Mars. Let's just face it, God created us to want to explore the universe, and that's just a part of the American psyche. We've had that in us, and I know a lot of people think it's a waste of money. I'll tell y'all a little story of human interest. My great-grandmother was born in 1885, and I used to stay with her as a kid. I was 16 when we landed people on the moon in 68. And my great-grandmother said they're somewhere in Arizona, they're not on the moon. It just looks like the moon because it's a desert. She never could bring herself to believe that we actually put a man on the moon in 1968.
Now, Andy, in that generation, my grandparents were the same. They heard about the Wright brothers, and they watched a man on the moon. What a change in a generation. But what are your thoughts on being back in space after 53 years, I think?
Well, first off, you've got it titled wrong. You don't say blast off, you say lift off, because they're sitting on tons of explosive fuel. Would you want to say blast
It
off?
was a pretty big blast.
It was that, but and NASA, that's something, if you watch, they never say blast off.
Well, I didn't learn that when I was in rocket science school.
Well, I did, so I'll
Okay,
share that
good.
with you. But this is just a phenomenal thing, and I think it's high time. We should already had a base on the moon and on our way to Mars by now. But this is the first step to Mars. Where they're going on the backside of the moon is where they feel like is the best chance of finding water. You've got to have water to have to drink, to make oxygen, and to make rocket fuel. So if they have that or can find that in the quantities that they need, you're going to see a base on Mars within the next 10, 12 years. And I think it's high time. I think we've lost a lot of time. We could have been a lot further along, and we just kind of just lost interest. I really believe. But looking at that liftoff, that, we were all used growing up to the Saturn V.
Mm-hmm.
That is much bigger than the Saturn V. So, and if you notice when it took off, usually with the other moon missions, it was a slow lift. That thing jumped out like a rabbit being chased by a dog. I mean, it was in the air fast. So I just think it's a wonderful thing, and I think Mike is right. This is the way we're created. We are got to find out what's over the next hill, and that's just where we are.
Just the next stage of go west, young man, go west.
No doubt we are a nation of explorers, and this shows it. Betsy, we're going to take a quick break and come back and get your thoughts on the Artemis II project.
Hi, I'm Tim Foster, your host for Blue and Bold Monthly right here on C19 TV. Get to know the coaches and student athletes of Cleveland Community College Athletics on Blue and Bold. We go in depth as we discuss cross country, track and field, volleyball, baseball, men and women's basketball, and softball. Catch Bull and Bold airing on C19 TV and online at c19.tv.
She gets her hair from her mom, her eyes from her dad, and her drugs from her home medicine cabinet. Fact: more people die from drug overdoses than from car crashes or gun violence. And over 50% of those deaths are from prescription drugs. Prescription drug abuse is preventable. 1. Secure and take regular inventory of our medications. 2. Dispose of unused or expired medications. 3. Share this message with others. Be aware, don't share, lock your meds.
Welcome back. Well, Betsy, we're talking about space exploration. We've got men, women, black, white, American, Canadian, shooting around the moon in the next few days. What are your thoughts on being back in deep space?
Oh, I'm fascinated by it. I mean, growing up, I remember when Sputnik went into the orbit and Russia had beat us in the race. I was in elementary school back in the dark ages when we rode dinosaurs to school. Anyway, and then fascinating with the movies that came out. The Right Stuff is the one that talks really about the early exploration. To the names of like John Glenn, who became a senator from Ohio. I mean, and then watching Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. And I knew, Mike, like your great-grandmother, that some people said, oh, that just happened out in the desert. But no, I believed it, and I still believe it. And I just think our world is getting smaller because of the number of people that in it. And I think that mankind is just always wanted to explore the stars. And so I see, Andy, I agree with you. I think if this is successful, and I think it will be, that we'll see more maybe of a station on the moon. I mean, I'm just glad that we're doing this. I am.
Well, and the moon station is a part of this. I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a minute, just for the fun of it.
No.
This is certainly an achievement, one in which we lead the world. However, it does make you wonder sometimes about priorities. This launch, just the launch, was $4 billion. The program is now over $60 billion. The original launch was 2016 for the Artemis 1. That didn't come till 2022. Artemis 3 was to send astronauts to the surface. It's now pushed back to Artemis 4 in 2028. We're supposed to begin assembly on the Artemis base, but the launch date for that is 2035. Meantime, our debt has doubled in the last decade. We're spending hundreds of billions of dollars in Iran right now. Sometimes it seems sort of like that family of five, both parents out of work, they're behind on the mortgage, and they decide to buy a fully loaded SUV and take a 3-week vacation. I just wonder sometimes if our priorities are right. I agree in principle we should explore the universe, but we can't do everything, and I guess that's my biggest concern over that.
Well,
Any comments? Go ahead,
the
Andy.
one thing about the space program, it has always created a lot of new things, new jobs, new whole industries. And I think that's what we've missed. I mean, yeah, we spend a lot of money, but I would love to know what kind of return do we get for every dollar we put in it. I mean, can you imagine what would the world be like without Tang in it? I mean,
Or worse yet, Velcro.
there you go. I mean, but that's just stuff. And, you know, sometimes you don't have to reinvent things. When they were working on sending men to the moon, they were having trouble with gravity not working with pins. They spent a fortune to get a pin that would work in 0 G's. You know what the Russians did? Used a pencil. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Wes, I
And that
think,
ought to tell you something, huh?
I think I have to say your point is well taken, that America is, I mean, you had a lightning round a few weeks ago, how it's only been 8 months and we've gone up $1 trillion in
Yeah.
debt. And that is a problem, and it's a growing problem, and someday, sometime, somewhere, the world's gonna lose their confidence in the dollar as a store of value if we don't do something different. So your point's well taken. And I'm at least glad you didn't have some bleeding heart, we could do this much more for all these illegal aliens and teach them how to come here and all that.
No, I certainly didn't say that.
And you didn't, Mike.
You'd have been the one that might have said that, Betsy.
I do think we need to consider our priorities and decide what it is we want, what it is we need, and what it is we hope to have one day.
And this conversation was the same back in whenever the initial
Yes.
space program was there, about some people feeling like that we ought to take care of people back home. But like Andy says, one thing before we leave this,
Please.
Wes, Hidden Figures was a movie that came out
Yes,
several
that's a
years
good
ago
movie.
that
Very
that
good.
really shows you what happened in Houston. And and one of the things that I came away with it was how many people was involved. How many people had jobs in order to make sure that Apollo capsule was safe and everything? So, Andy, you have a good point. It creates industries and jobs.
Well, not when it's based on tax money. There's a net loss there, but that's beside the point. We can cover this later. Still a very proud moment for America to see men back in space, men and women.
And women.
Back in space. I think we can all agree with that. Well, even more big news this week. As we finished questions late yesterday, got word that a 32-year-old case was settled. Leandro, North Carolina Supreme Court voted to end the 32-year-old Leandro case by a 4-3 vote. The decision Thursday throws out a lower court ruling that would have led to $677 million in new court-ordered education spending in the state, and could have led to billions more. The majority decision stated, in agreement with Governor and then Attorney General Josh Stein, that the claims were no longer the focus in this case. The ruling ensures the separation of powers, that only the General Assembly, not the courts, are authorized to appropriate expenditures. Andy, this is ultimately a separation of powers issue.
It is.
As a former member of the General Assembly, what are your thoughts on this ruling?
Well, I think it's time. I mean, you look at the Constitution, it clearly puts the power of the purse in the legislative side. And it has been a thorn in my side, Wes, ever since this started, that you've got individual judges sitting on the bench dictating what school policy and education is going to be done in this state.
And they had help from some guy in California, if you remember.
Well, I don't even know who that was.
A whole
But-
team of people, West
But
Ed.
the thing of it is, this is righting a wrong, in my opinion. I understood the original Leandro. I mean, this thing started when my political career started.
Yeah.
And it's been around and round and round. And there was the questions and concerns that sparked this was just about basically special need kids getting the same funding as regular kids. And I understand that. And these low wealth counties in the northeastern part of the state, they're just broke. Greene County, I mean, you just go on the list of them. And they have no tax ability to raise taxes to do schools. And I get that. But this wasn't the way to handle it, in my opinion. So yeah, I think the Constitution has won. The people have won. So I say, hooray, hooray.
Well, Betsy, I think Andy makes a really good point. This ultimately is not about what do we need in the classroom. It's about who determines what is appropriate and how that's determined. What are your thoughts on this settlement and maybe what comes ahead as we keep an eye on the clock?
The counties that at 1994, Hoke, Robeson, Cumberland, Halifax, and Vance, very poor counties with not much tax base. And the young man that Leandro is now grown, he's a lawyer, and so it's just gone on forever and it's changed, and I don't think that it could ever been cut. And I always wondered too, because I knew what the General Assembly's powers were, and they are the ones that have the power of the purse. Now, is it needed? Yes. I mean, our state can spend $500 million in voucher money and instead of helping the public schools in these poor counties. But at this time, I don't think there was anything else that could have happened differently.
Mike,
Well, let me correct Betsy a little bit.
thank you.
Oh,
I was biting my
They
tongue
spent
over here.
500-something million on vouchers in addition to fully funding the public school, traditional public schools, Betsy.
Fully funding,
At any
fully
rate-
funding out, that's another
At any rate,
question.
Newby focused on the July 2017, and guess who he used for one of his support pieces? Then Attorney General Josh Stein. He said that in that court filing in 2017 from the Attorney General, Josh Stein, quote, highlighted the original claims which were stated in the pleadings and refined by the court's decisions and said they were no longer the focus of the case. So what it started over evolved over time, and they essentially said that Stein was right, and since they had changed the whole thing, that the case was basically null and void, is what the force said in a way, and it was dismissed with prejudice, which means it can't come back. But they further did conclude that by July of 2017, that the subject matter jurisdiction was void ab initio, which is Latin for it was basically flawed from the beginning and has no standing ever. And three agreed with that in the same opinion, and then Berger Jr., the other justice for it, he wanted it to be more clear because he thinks it could still come back. And the one Republican that voted against it went a little further. He wanted to remand it back, make the courts take it back to its original focus and try to solve it. And of course, the two Democrats wrote nearly 100 pages of dissent. I didn't try to read it, I just ran it down to see how long it was. But I think it's time it was over. I remember Andy for years, as we've talked about this off and on, saying, how do they do that? It's the duty of the legislature, not judges to appropriate money or order money to be appropriated. I will say this, though, there is a constitutional complexity or tension there. On the one hand, the Constitution says that the General Assembly will give everybody a sound basic public education. On the other hand, you had 5 counties that initially trying to make the case they weren't, and it got convoluted. But what if you do conclude they're not? What is the solution if a court can't make a ruling?
Well, the question is who concludes they're not? And certainly when that case was filed, Education Governor Jim Hunt was governor of North Carolina, and I think
the court
would have had some control over that.
Couldn't the Supreme Court of North Carolina rule that in terms of the Constitution, the General Assembly is not providing enough money to get a sound basic education?
Well, since Mr. Leandro's an attorney, I would argue he got a pretty good
Well, I'd
education.
say he did, but see, here's the still problem still exists. You've got low wealth counties that do not have the money to educate the children, same as, say, Mecklenburg. It's just a fact, and there it is.
Well, you can see the problem and why this case has taken 32 years, but it's settled now.
I do want to make it clear, by asking that question and seeing that tension, I still think, given what we had, this is the right ruling. It's just a couple decades too late.
I would tend to agree. We're going to move on to the lightning round. Mike, get us started since you're on a roll.
Well, there have been 11 or 12 cities taken over by the local government commission in all its years, over 90 years. Several of them, 4 or 5 in the 12 years I served. Right now, Rocky Mount, with 60-some thousand population, is on the hot seat. They've had a massive cash investment drop from $100 million to $20 million in 2 years. They've had very little oversight. This year, they've had to raise 15% rate increases for electric, gas, water, sewer, and trash. And the local government commission put them on notice that if it's not solved by June 30th and they get a balanced budget, they're going to be the largest city ever taken over by the LGC.
Wow. Betsy?
All right. I'm going to talk about President Trump.
Really?
Yes, and if you are a person that really curries his favor, you better really suck up to him. And poor Pam Bondi got fired this week. And why she got fired? Because she certainly had misused the Attorney General's position to really be his sycophant. And but it was about, he was disgruntled with her with how she mishandled the Epstein files and other things. So out the door she goes. And so who else is in his cabinet is going to make that mistake not to be perfectly worshiping at his feet, and out the door they'll go before the end of this term.
Well, I'm glad you had an excuse to get Epstein worked into the show somehow, Betsy. Andy?
Well, I've changed my question, Wes. I had them. It's what I want to discuss. You know, I did want to talk about Christy Nolan, her cross-dressing husband everybody's talking about.
Oh, I knew that would be yours.
Yeah, that's but I've got something I think that's more concerning to me. My favorite candy, Kit Kat. In Europe, somebody stole a truck that had 400,000 bars in it, 12 tons of Kit Kats. Can you only imagine? They have now got a Kit Kat tracker that you can download. You can take your candy bar, which has got a number on the back of it for tracking purposes, and to see if yours was stolen. Well, I mean, it's a terrible thing. I mean, it really is. I hope that's not going to affect our supply here in America.
We'll see. I'm at a bit of loss for words on that one, Andy. Well, mine's from the Circular Argument Department of the Democrat Party. An important announcement. The governor of Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, just signed a law banning firearm possession for any person under the age of 21 unless they're accompanied by an adult. Statute 1-203 of the Commonwealth of Virginia reads simply, an adult is defined as a person 18 years of age or more. So if you're in Virginia and under 21 and want to carry a gun, please be sure to have your 18-year-old friend with you so you can do so legally. That's going to do it for us today. Hope you enjoyed Political Smackdown. We'll see you next week.